Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Lamo, and this is the Look at My Opinion podcast. And yeah, basically today I'm just gonna cover the card that happened last night and maybe rant about a couple of things depending on what my mind comes to. Uh, so to start this off, let me just say, Veronica Macedo, not that good at MMA. She's pretty athletic. She had a really high output in the first round, and Malecki did her best Stefan Struve impression. But aside from that, she got extremely tired. She made mistakes that you really don't expect to see at the level of the UFC. Stuff like laying down on the ground whenever you're trying to transition back to your feet. I'm pretty sure I saw her rest her head on the ground like she was taking a nap at one point, and just seeing stuff like that is just so bad, so bad. They need to be fighting on the regional scene. But on the flip side, I was really happy to see Dvorak's takedown defense hold up and win his debut against Bruno Silva. That was really dope. He had some good combinations, some good clinch work. I wasn't really expecting a whole lot, but I was expecting him to win, so I was glad to see that happen. Uh, Bueno Silva looks like a great prospect. She's a fantastic athlete, unreal power for women's MMA, and pretty accurate whenever she really bites down on a punch. But Moreau's a little bit too experienced, like I predicted. Her jab looked excellent. I really liked how she used it to the body. If only she had a little bit better defense to make sure that people like Bueno Silva, who are green and inexperienced, can't just tag off on her. And can we just give some props on Amanda Rebus, or Hebus, or whatever the fuck you say when you say her name? She checks all boxes in my opinion. She's charismatic. She's cute. Her fighting ability is through the roof. She's very, very marketable. Very good prospect. Looks like she's well-rounded everywhere. And the fact that, she was able to go toe-for-toe with Mackenzie Dern, who, as hot as she is, she's actually a really, really legit jiu-jitsu player. And he was just pretty much beat her there. And tonight was a very, very clinical performance against a veteran. And usually, see, the problem you have with putting up prospects against veterans is that veterans can usually implement a grappling game plan. So when you see a prospect just run through a veteran with a grapple-heavy approach, you're like, oh, okay, well, this person's legit. She should get a lot of credit for that performance over Marcos, even if it wasn't the most fun to watch. Yeah, I think that she's going to have a bright future. And allow me to fangirl over Brandon Moreno just for a little bit. I've been watching this guy fight for years, and he has evolved into this completely well-rounded fighter from where he used to be just a really durable, good endurance, opportunistic submission fighter who was just kind of winging the whole striking thing. And I don't know who gave him this wide open stance, like he's trying to channel ki from inside of him. It's so weird, so unique, but it works. His hands often find the target, and they find the target hard. Out engaging Formiga without him being able to effectively shut it down is something very, very few people in the world can do. Very few people. And seeing him do that was just so mind-blowing. It really showed me that he deserves to be in elite status in flyweight. It's something that I've been waiting for a while, but was not sure that was going to happen. It's kind of like if Paul Felder ever became a legit top 3 fighter, and you were a huge fan of Paul Felder. You'd be like, oh, okay, well, definitely didn't see this coming, but sweet. Fucking awesome. And that's how I feel about Brandon Moreno. I think Figueroa is a great fight for him because Fig's going to look to counter. He's going to look to land that straight right, and Moreno's going to meet him in the pocket, and they're going to crack. And the scrambles, the way Moreno dealt with Formiga's historically fantastic back takes, by being able to roll out and find space to scramble out, it was just so textbook, so good. I really didn't expect that from him. When he got his back taken, I was really, really hoping he wouldn't have a mental lapse and get choked out. But he didn't. He actually showed composure and got out of these positions in really risky ways. Rolling over against a guy as quick as Formiga might not end well. But if you're fucking Brandon Moreno, it will end well. Love that guy so much. Really want to see him fight for a title soon. I think it goes without saying that Johnny Walker really isn't all that good at MMA either. We giving shit for Veronica Macedo, but at least she can scramble out, you know? I mean, Krylov's not known for being able to hold people down, even though he had the little leg ties that you see now in the current MMA game. It was a good, effective performance, but it really highlighted how limited Johnny Walker is. I mean, it's not often you see an athlete like that at light heavyweight, but Johnny Walker has two fatal flaws that I really think are going to inhibit his athleticism. One, his chin isn't the best. If Johnny Walker had a solid chin, I mean, he probably beats most people at light heavyweight, and also he's just not very good at MMA. Someone that tall, someone that powerful, should not have such bad takedown defense. At this point, with all the top-notch training and all the techniques we've seen used and used effectively in the octagon, there is no reason why you should be able to not prevent a takedown at this stage. And I think it goes without saying that Moicano made that shit look easy. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. He just took him down and got his back and choked him out. I mean, there was no issue there for him. He just literally made it look like there are levels to this, and that's what this fight was. This fight was like, hey, we know you're actually, a top 10 guy. We're going to give you someone that's not even close to top 10, and you should just blow through him. So it's really pleasing to see him pass that test that he should have passed, because some fighters just lose those, and then they're never the same. So Moicano got past that, showed he was elite, and I'm really looking forward to see how he does against elite competition, see if he fix some of those holes. And Gilbert Burns killed Maia, just like I thought he would, and also survived his strongest position, which in my opinion is more of a statement than knocking him out. Maia's old. Maia's been through a lot. Someone as powerful and as accurate as Gilbert Burns, putting him out really isn't surprising, which is why I picked him to win by TKO. But what is surprising is that Maia is still crafty enough to end up in these dominant positions, and Gilbert Burns got out of these positions fairly easily. It looked a little concerning at one point, but when you look back on it, he was never in any real danger, and that's just really impressive to me. That really shows that Burns is legit. I'm not seeing anyone that could really grapple him effectively at welterweight right now, besides maybe Usman. And holy shit, Do Bronx, Charles Oliveira going against Kevin Lee. And I was insanely nervous for this fight. I really wanted to see if Oliveira could put it together against someone that most people consider elite. And goddamn did he do it. Man, he did it. He did everything that I thought he was going to do. And I'm so happy, man. I was so scared he was going to get caught and erase all the good he was doing, but he didn't. So now we get to just focus on the good and, just really give him his props finally. I don't know who he's working with. I don't know the trainers that he came with, but that striking is amazing. That striking is great. He's so accurate with these powerful kicks up top. He's able to jab when he wants to. I wish he'd do it more, but he's still able to do it. He goes to the body. He throws in combination. He will counter now, and that's something that was completely missing from his game for the longest time. Him being able to stay in the pocket and counter and roll with these shots, it just puts him on another level. And then you add in the fact that he's one of the most dangerous submission artists that's ever competed in the UFC. I'm so excited, man. I'm so excited because after beating Kevin Lee, that means, hey, you're only going to fight elite fighters now. And not saying that Kevin Lee's not elite, but he's not like super duper elite. So I don't know how I favor Charles Oliveira or someone like Gaethje or McGregor, Dustin Poirier. I don't know. I would favor him over Dan Hooker, Paul Felder, people like that. But just remember, if you're fighting Charles Oliveira and you don't put him out, he's going to counter you. And when he counters you, at some point, he's going to take that neck. And there's nothing you can do about it. Sorry. Fully on the Charles Oliveira train. We're going to see how far he goes. It's going to be a great ride. So, I had an interaction today with a group of trolls, and I know they were trolling. But you know me, I interact with trolls. I interact with serious people. I interact with everyone. That's what I do. I'm here to combat complete ignorance and go against any statement. So even if you're trolling, even if you don't mean what you say, if I see it, I'm going to respond to it. That's just how it is. That's how it's always going to be. And so I've got a little rant, and it's not directly inspired from the trolls because I know that they were trolling. But I do see what they were trolling about from countless people on the timeline. I see real people every day who think this. People in my own personal life who think this. People who just really don't know shit about fighting. And I'm going to rant on that a little bit. To the brain dead meathead morons who think height is somehow a direct correlation to strength, this isn't the WWE. You're not going to see Wilson Race use his agility and small size to be a high flyer off the top ropes in order to deal more damage to Kane. It's not going to happen. You're not judging MMA fights like they're open weight. You need to recognize that MMA has regulated weight classes for a reason. KO power is relative to the division. Strength is relative to the division. Durability is relative to the division. Could Figueroa take a Francis Ngannou punch? Probably not. But guess what? He's not going to fight Francis Ngannou because, we have a sport and weight classes matter. I mean, boxing has weight classes every 2 pounds or something, some stupid shit like that. Weight classes matter. And if you're not going to judge MMA fights relative to their division, then why are you talking about it? Why do you think you know about fighting? You don't. You're stupid. No one takes you seriously. And just because Tim Elliott couldn't high crotch Derek Lewis doesn't mean that he's not a good fighter. Rational people can see context. Rational people can look at the wide scope of things and say, hey, this makes sense. But you can't, apparently. I'm 6'3", and I'm over 200 pounds. I'm well aware of the size advantages and how they play into combat sports. I'm also well aware of grappling someone who's immensely more skilled than me. And even if they're smaller, even if they're significantly smaller, it negates any size advantage I have. Their ability to capitalize on the smallest openings and be too quick for me really matters. So, if you're sitting here listening to this and you genuinely think that you could beat a flyweight in a fight, then you likely have BJ Penn levels of CTE. There's just such a massive disconnect between reality and the fantasy in your head that's very concerning for those who surround you in your personal life. If you're psychotic enough to believe that Demetrius Johnson wouldn't just deadleg you off the first leg kick to the thigh, you're probably unstable enough to murder your entire family because they insulted you at dinner or some shit. I can't understand being so delusional, so uneducated about combat in general that you think shit like this. So you're all fucking stupid. Any UFC flyweight could kill you any way they wanted to without any much trouble. You look like your shoes stuck in half-dried cement if you tried to turn around and prevent a back take. They just choke you out. They just knock you out because you're a beta. You're a beta, and you don't know how to fight, and they do. That's all it is. So, and also, like I told you guys, empty stadiums are epic. I told you this on the timeline when people were having doubts, like, oh, what's it going to be like whenever people can't scream and cuss and be weird? Well, what it's going to be like is you're going to hear every strike, you're going to hear every movement, and most importantly, we're going to hear sound bites from fighters who incoherently ramble about disrespect. Moicano. I mean, that was funny, wasn't it? I mean, Michael Bisping just straight up asked him, hey, why'd you get angry after the fight? And he just proceeded to go on some completely, stupid rant about, I love my mom and my supporters so much. It kind of makes me cringe to see a grown man avoid a question like that with such an irrelevant non-answer. But I'll give Moicano a pass because he's a good fighter. So just imagine Khabib and Tony in a completely empty arena. It would be incredibly epic. It's just more pure. Like, hearing Khabib talk shit to Tony Ferguson when he's on top of him would be so amazing. Like, clearly hearing it. Like, we heard it pretty clearly against Michael Johnson, but there was a lot of traffic. You had to have subtitles. And I just know that Khabib saying something to Tony when he gets on top position would be the most epic thing I've ever seen. And I want Tony Ferguson to win, but I just know that fight without an audience would just be truly epic. And speaking of that fight, I really think that the most important thing that the UFC can do right now is to put Khabib and Tony in a bubble so they don't get the coronavirus and they're able to fight. Because if that fight gets canceled again, I'm going to cry. And I think a lot of people will cry with me. So yeah, I think I'm going to close with this. My last rant will be about weight cutting. I've had a lot of bad interactions recently. I've had a lot of people who seem to think they know exactly what a fighter can and can't do when it comes to a weight cut. So I just want to address a couple things, a couple misconceptions. Weight cutting is entirely doable if you are disciplined enough. Weight cutting doesn't just shut down your kidneys randomly. Your organs fail whenever you're trying to cut too much weight during your water cut. Your organs fail whenever you are undisciplined to the point to where you need to push your body beyond its limits to drop that extra weight. Daniel Cormier is a perfect example of this. Daniel Cormier has the frame of a middleweight. He does. 72-inch reach, 5'11". He's just a thick boy. I mean, it's not like he hides it. He knows it. He makes parody stuff about eating fried chicken and eating cake. He made like a whole thing for the MMA awards because it's funny. He's fat. Like, that's what he's known for. And he's a damn good fat fighter, but he's still fat. Making 205 should not have been stressful for him. But he's so undisciplined for so long that he has to. He has to do that. Jared Cannonier was a heavyweight, light heavyweight, and now he's a middleweight, and he's older than DC was when he started MMA. I mean, if Jared Cannonier can get on this crazy diet to become more ripped than he's ever been before, why couldn't DC? And Kevin Lee missed weight in the main event, and I'm glad he lost the fight because that's just a double L. And people were telling me that sometimes your body just shuts down and you have no control over that. Kevin Lee's made 155 a million times. He knows what it takes to make that weight. He's big enough for the weight class, and it's realistic to expect him to make the weight. If he's having a bad water cut, it's because he was undisciplined outside of it. You need to have your weight at a level to where you can reasonably do a water cut and get down to the limit. Maybe he ate one too many meals. Maybe he didn't do his cardio for the day. I don't know. There's a million steps that can go wrong to making sure that you're heavier than anticipated. But all of it comes down to nutrition, comes down to activity levels, and it comes down to caloric restriction. If you can't follow those guidelines, don't sign a contract that says you're going to fight at that weight. Don't do it. Just fight at welterweight. So that's pretty much it. That's all I can think of to talk about today. I'm sure I'll be inspired one day to talk about more sometime soon. Interacting on Twitter and with all you guys really helps fuel the creative juices to be like, hey, I'm going to talk about this instead of having to split up my thoughts into like 4 separate tweets. So this is a good outlet for it. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. If you did, hit the like button on the video, leave a comment. If you leave a comment, we can get into a in-depth discussion if you want about some of the fights. Yeah, I appreciate you guys listening, and this was Listen to My Opinion.